First, let me make a quick announcement. I'm changing my publishing schedules from Tuesdays and Fridays to Wednesdays and Sundays, just because I've got more time on the weekends, and hopefully I'll be able to make some longer form content for Sunday's video. So on to today's fly. I was flipping through some of my old books, just looking for a lesser known, maybe semi-forgotten pattern to tie, and I found one in this 1941 copy of George Herter's Professional Fly Tying and Tackle Making. And some of y'all will have heard of George Herter from this vise, the good old Herter's number 3 or 4. This one's a number 4 Gary Hartung sent me a while back, and while I haven't tied on this thing, as it doesn't fit on my bench, it's a pretty cool collectible piece. So the pattern I found is called the Ed Burke Nymph, and I did read somewhere that he came up with this pattern in the 1930s, which makes sense because Herter's book was published in 1941. And while this is not a common nymph, I wouldn't call it a forgotten fly either. It does show up in Terry Hellickson's popular fly patterns from 1976, and then again in Raymond Scott Stetzer's Flies the Best 1000 published in 1992. And it's tied slightly different in all three of these books. The body was either a black wool or a rabbit fur. And Herter and Hellickson had the front hackle tied as a collar, whereas Stetzer had it more of a beard or a throat. But either way, this is a pretty cool bug. So there it is in the vise, the Ed Burke Nymph. Pretty classic, just standard mayfly looking nymph, but it is tied big. In Hellickson's book, he said anywhere from 6 to 12. So I'm gonna go with the size 10. It's a 2 extra long barbless nymph hook, and I'm gonna put some weight on it. It said this is optional, but I would probably wanna fish this thing deep. Here's an 015. I'm just going to put several wraps in the first third of it or so. And I'm going to use some black thread. This is a 70 denier. You could certainly go with something thicker if you wanted to. Put a little dam behind it, a few wraps over it, dam it up front, and then take the thread to the back at the bend of the hook. And we are going to put a tag on this. Mylar tinsel, gold on one side, silver on the other. We want it gold. We want the tag and the rib to be gold, so catch it with the gold side toward the hook. Let's just get this down right here. Okay, and so where my thread is right now, that's about where I'm going to start the body, but I'm going to wrap a tag down, probably 2 or 3 wraps down and back up. But before I do that, here's a little tip. 3 big open wraps. Get your thread out of the way and remember that it's 3. Now we just wrap this with the gold showing down 2, maybe 3 if you want, and then back up. So there's our tag, and remember 3 wraps. So back these 3 off, and you're right here where we want to catch this off. And I'm going to catch it off on the bottom. And that is on purpose so that, you know, this tag doesn't get in our way for tying in our tail and then starting the body. So let's go ahead and park this out of the way. I got my magnet right there. Do a couple extra wraps right here. And now some black hackle feathers, barbs from a hackle feather. Could be a dry fly, could be a hen, a rooster or hen, really doesn't matter. And a good chunk of them. It's not real long, but not insignificant either. So let's go with this right here, a little pinch wrap, and then take a look at it. Okay, I think that's going to be enough right there. Go ahead and bury this down right here and leave your thread kind of toward the back. Put some wax on it. And the recipe says dub a black wool body. Now my black wool was kind of long and stringy, so I mixed it with some rabbit. This is about half wool and half rabbit. And it'll still be a little fuzzy, but the rabbit will help it go on here just a little bit easier. And I'm not going to worry if it's a little too fuzzy because I am putting that big thick rib up through that. So get enough dubbing on here. We're going to dub it to about the back of where that weight is. And I'm going to need just a little bit more. And you know what? I think I want to go just a little bit longer because I don't want my thorax to be that big. Okay, I'm liking that just a little bit better. Now, before we catch in our thorax, let's go ahead and wrap this rib up. And I think 4 wraps is going to be fine right there. We're a little fuzzy, but we may end up trimming it in a second anyway. And the next component is our wing case. And Herter recommended a light turkey, mottled turkey here. And Hellickson said some type of pheasant tail fibers. I'm going to go with Herter's. I think the lighter turkey is going to look a little bit better. So I'll catch it in right on top with just a couple of loose wraps. Make sure I'm positioned how I want so that when I fold it over, it's going to be on top. I think we're fine right there, so we'll do some tighter wraps right here to just really lock it in. And now, from where my thread is to where I'm going to catch the hackle, that's going to be my thorax. You can see why I made that body a little bit longer. I didn't want a huge thorax, but go ahead and put some wax and then dub a little bit more of that same body material up here. Just make it a little thicker because we want the thorax to be a little bit thicker. Okay, that's kind of bulbous, not perfect, but I think it's going to work. So let's go ahead and fold this over. Just try to keep these fibers parallel right here. Now we'll do a few extra wraps right here. Just try to get a flat area where we're going to wrap this hackle. And one interesting note, Herter called this just a small egg sac. I've always just heard it called a wing case, but you know, maybe it's the same thing. And for the front hackle, or legs, just another black feather. I'm going to use a feather from that same hen cape I would use for the tail. Kind of long barbs, long fibers here, but not very many. Probably do about 2 wraps. So after you get that secured, let's just fold that up and snip this excess right here. I don't have a real long feather to work with, so it's a good thing I'm only going to do about 2 wraps. Because I don't think I could hold it much. I guess I could use my hackle pliers here, but I didn't take the time to go grab them. I think there's our 2 wraps. Let's go ahead and catch this off. And one thing I often do on flies like this with a collar hackle, before I snip that excess piece off, I just pull everything back and then work on my head. I don't really know what this does for you, but I think it lessens the chance that you snipping that off and the feather will slip out on you before you're done tying it off. So now we can snip this excess. It's not going to go anywhere on us. And just a few extra wraps work on our head here. So there you go. Take a look at it, see if you got any cleanup. I got a little bit of that wool sticking out, but I'm not going to worry about it. I'm going to put a drop of head cement on it, call this thing done. So there you go, the Ed Burke Nymph. I appreciate y'all watching. Take care, and we'll see you next time.